Alright, let's try this again. I hope everyone's well. Alright, how's everybody doing? Hope everyone's doing well. Everyone okay? Oh, hello, Emily. How are you doing? So, are you on your break? Okay. It's like talking about the whole system and how it's all a bunch of BS. Like, I was saying about how I just restarted it, but I was just saying about, how you've got all these like billionaires and, that it's like they're actually the ones that, claiming the benefits and, things like bailouts and stuff like that. But yeah, people get shamed for claiming it. It's like, you know what I've been thinking about lately? Shope is what's that? What's that about? I don't know what that is. What do you mean? Is that a typo or something? Hit the like button. But yeah, it's still a bit kind of, yeah. The whole thing is a joke. The guys who carry all the equipment up Everest, really? All right. Why have you been thinking about that? Have you been thinking about going up Everest, or yeah? Anyway, so yeah, just hope everyone's doing well. But like I said about, people are, going to work to pay for the car that they go to work in. Another thing is that they're going to work to pay for a house that's vacant the whole time that they're at work, like a home that they're hardly ever in a lot of cases. Keep seeing it on TikTok, lol, it's so awful how they are treated. Yeah, I bet. Yeah. But it's just like, it just says how this whole system is, when you really think about it, like it's all a scam basically. So, like, could you blame someone for not wanting to take part in that? Some people argue that, well, it's for the social aspect of it, but in a lot of cases, that isn't even worth it either. And sometimes it's even worse doing that than to just not take part at all. A lot of people find they have toxic environments. They feel like they have to just perform. They have to perform to try and fit in, to, to be part of a team. That if they're not seen as a team player, so then they feel shamed if they're not taking part in all these different events and whatever, and so yeah, like, I guess it depends if you like, because there's this thing of like people who are like more introverted, it's going to be a really bad experience in a lot of cases if you feel like you're forced into just interacting with people and stuff like that when you don't always want to. My partner got a pay rise yesterday randomly. It's literally half my salary he's getting extra. Makes me think, what's the point, lol? Yeah, that's quite a lot of pay rise, but that, I guess he's lucky in like what his job is doing. But oftentimes the pay rises that they're getting is not even, it's not even taking into account inflation. Like, for example, the inflation could be at like whatever 3-4%, and they might get like a 2% rise after a year or something. It's like, are you taking the piss? It's just all a scam. It's like they're trying to gaslight you, and you don't to think, oh yeah, that this is a pay rise, but really it's actually a decrease, if anything. It's like a net decrease in salary when you take into account how much everything's started costing more. And this is 10%. Yeah, 2% is crazy. I don't know if like anyone actually gets 2%, but I don't know. But I can imagine that some people do. But there was like it was especially bad when inflation got to about 10% one year, didn't it? And it was like, I don't think anyone was getting a 10% increase hardly, unless you was like you said, one of these people like up high in like say management or whatever. I used to in my old job every year. Like, what was that then? Was like 10%. I guess it depends really, but then don't you end up with more responsibilities though or something? Because they were saying how, yeah, you might get promoted and get better wages, but then you have more responsibilities on your shoulders, and then, oh, just for inflation, right? What do you mean that it was like they increased just to match the inflation? So you don't get more for like being more experienced in your job and getting better at it, which is kind of just like taking the piss really, because you should really be getting more over time as appreciation, and also like for being loyal to the company and having more experience in that company and getting better. But they found that people tend to earn more by switching jobs regularly, like by not staying loyal to a company and constantly switching. The reason for that is because if you're seen as someone that can easily just find new jobs all the time, then they're not just going to like think that they can get away with paying a shit wage. Whereas if someone stays loyal longer, then they just treat you like shit. They treat you like, oh, well, they're going to stay loyal to me anyway. So they don't respect you. They seem to have more respect, funnily enough, for people who are not loyal to them. It's crazy, isn't it? It's, that's the thing is that I've realized with like when it comes to respect is that oftentimes we would get more respect from somebody when we it depends on the situation, I guess, but sometimes, yeah, if you show respect to somebody, you get respect back. But when it comes to like these greedy kind of people and whatever, and they just see you as a pushover, and when you're just like being loyal to them. It all comes down to like, I'm only gonna be loyal to you, and if you're gonna be loyal to me, kind of thing. Why should I stay in your fucking shitty ass company that's corrupt and has bad values when you're not even paying me like a decent salary? Yeah, that's it. I would say assertive, not aggressive. Assertive is like the kind of third option. People think, oh, I either have to be passive or aggressive, but being assertive is like the third option. It's about not being aggressive, but like not being passive either. It's the sort of middle ground between the two. Years ago, my partner threatened to leave because we couldn't afford life easily. Instant 7K pay rise, right? Yeah, that's the thing. As soon as you threaten to, do that, then it's like, suddenly it's like, oh shit, they're gonna go. Suddenly now they value you. But they don't value you unless you are seen as, what's the word? It's the whole thing of like, like it's like with, say, when it comes to dating as well, it's the same thing. If you threaten to leave, then suddenly now they're on their best behavior. They were never on their best behavior until it became like, oh shit, I better like, there's like so many cases of where, for example, where somebody, leaves somebody and that person ends up like self-improving or whatever. And you think to yourself, why didn't they fucking do that whilst they were with the person? It's like they're then trying to do that as a way to, I know the people say about success is the best form of revenge and all that, but it sounds really petty actually when you think about it, that, okay, so you waited until I left you to now improve on yourself, that you didn't do that whilst you were with me. Now you're trying to do that to try and, or either to get back at me or to, to find somebody better or something. I don't know, like what you're playing at. It's just like, I've never had that myself, but it's like, I would see that as very petty and it just, why didn't they, like improve themselves while they're with you kind of thing? Why? Hello, Squirrel. Good to see you. How you doing? Emily says, OMG, so true. Yes, assertive, that's the word, the rare commodity. Yeah, because usually people are either too passive or too aggressive, and both extremes are not good. It's all the work of the ego. Yeah, it's like people trying to kind of, prove to the other that they have value and that they're, it's their loss and all this kind of thing. But instead of like reflecting and, thinking, okay, why did this person leave me? Like, why did they leave me? Maybe I need to, work on myself. But now their way of trying to deal with that is, oh, well, now I'm going to, start losing weight or something. It's like, well, why didn't you fucking do that when you were with the person? That suddenly now you have this motivation to do that. Hello, Jeffrey. How you doing? I hope you're well. Feeding the ego vampire energy. Yeah, it's just sick when you think about it, that this person was not putting it all in while they were with the person, and now suddenly they're not with the person. Now they're like trying their best, or they'll only try their best when you threaten to leave them. It's like, if it's getting to a point where you're threatening to leave somebody, then you should probably just leave them. Like, if they're starting to get to a point where they're showing no respect and they're not, respecting your boundaries and things like that, then it's time to go, isn't it? Yeah, it's time to just pack your bags and go. You shouldn't keep giving chances to these kind of people, The person that's just going to probably try and, but, oh, look, look at what you missed out on. Okay, but you just, you got too comfortable. You got too, You shouldn't get too comfortable. You should always be trying to work on yourself. And then they're left, and now suddenly they're trying, or you're threatening to leave. Suddenly now they're trying their best because they're afraid of losing it now, but they didn't value it before. You know, they had it in them all along. What do you mean? Both partners need to be balanced themselves, otherwise one will always be the vampire and the other its energy source. Yeah, exactly. This is a thing where both partners need to be, there needs to be a balance of power and like, not, I mean, I don't like to use the word power, but you know, what the interest in each other, like there needs to be, otherwise there can be like imbalances and one can take, you know, control over the other, because the one that's the least interested is then has leverage, because then the one that's more interested will then, you know, bend to the other person's will. Okay, see you later. Bend to that other person's will. You know, they will, you know, not have a lot of self-respect, not set boundaries because they're afraid of losing that person, but that other person really isn't interested, so they don't care that much, so they just kind of, they're able to control and manipulate. Yeah, well, that's good then. You know, you've got a balanced life, and 27 years ago, that's a long time, but it's a rare thing these days, it seems, of, you know, having that kind of that balanced connection of where you both have a strong desire for each other, and not in an obsessive way, but just having that peaceful kind of, like, you know, each other's going to be, you know, faithful, you know, each other's going to respect each other, and yeah, you're both at peace knowing that, and there's not this kind of one trying to control the other because, you know, that they are taking advantage of a vulnerable person who's got maybe a very high level of attachment, and that is not healthy when you've got a high level of attachment and the other person doesn't. It just creates, you know, a toxic environment. So anyway, but I'd say that is actually a flex. I wouldn't say sleeping around with 100 people is a flex. The true flex is actually being able to maintain being with someone and finding that person who you find that balance and that, you know, kind of similar wavelength to you, that you feel at ease and just, you feel settled. You can feel, you know, like grounded, instead of feeling kind of just lost trying to, you know, seek out all these random experiences, and that doesn't actually mean anything. There's no real passion to it. It's just lust that just, you get the temporary buzz that doesn't, you know, satisfy your soul, and it just keeps you in this state of lust perpetually. So that's what the mistake a lot of like young men especially are making, that they think that their success is predicated on how many partners they've had, as opposed to, you know, being able to maintain a partner, if you get me. So it's just, it's because of people like Andrew Tate. I think they've really hurt things a lot, I would say, because they'll come out with shit like, you know, something like, you know, that something shit like, you're not a real man unless you have multiple girlfriends or something like that. It's just so pathetic. It's now, if you want to do that, I'm not saying, you know, stop doing that. I'm not telling people what to do, but I'm just saying that, you know, when you're an influencer like that and you're promoting that, that is where I draw the line. You are, you know, destroying a lot of young men doing that stuff because of the way. But the thing is, a lot of these people end up becoming irrelevant. Look what happened to him. You know, no one really cares that much anymore. It's same with a lot of these other people. It's like that whole manosphere grift thing is kind of died off now, really. So it is extremes in anything. It's all about discernment. Yeah, exactly. It's all about kind of just it's like these. You got these like grifters who are trying to sell you, on like things such as, they're trying to prey on a lot of vulnerable young men who are struggling. Like everyone's struggling now. Hello, Lucy, welcome back. So everyone's struggling now. Everyone's kind of, feeling lonelier than ever. So it's natural that there is going to be some vulnerable people who, naturally going to fall prey to it. But it's just disgusting, I think. And but a lot of these people who are doing that kind of stuff to like prey on these people, they themselves haven't healed any wounds that they have. They are trying to sort of, probably try and sort of become rich to try and kind of fill a void that they'll never really fill. They're always chasing after more and more money, and they'll do whatever it takes to get that. They are desperate. So they're not actually like real men, I don't think. They are wounded men. They've probably been burned in the past or something, and they're just wounded. They're not actually real men, I don't think. A true masculine man is actually one that is certain of his value regardless of how much material wealth he has. He doesn't need that. He doesn't need to flex all that to prove who he is. But they're just kind of like, you see them, all these people now, they would copy on them, like, look at me with my cigar and all this shit, and it's like pathetic. You're not a real man, you're just a clone. Yeah, arrogant, manipulative people, not good, is it? Yeah. It's like, these clones out there. So it's just created a generation of clones, basically. People thinking that they have to follow his blueprint of smoking cigars, wearing, like sunglasses, all this kind of shit, right? It's cringy as fuck. It is so cringy. It's like this is what it's doing. And then they're following whatever BS diet advice or anything like that, they're just sheep. How are they real men? Real men are not sheep. They forge their own path, Like they don't just be like, oh, look, this is what Andrew Tate's doing or whatever other person is doing. But fortunately, it looks like a lot of that is dying off. But unfortunately, a lot of there's still a lot of influence on young men in terms of like their attitude towards things, their outlook on things, like their whole thing of needing money to be successful and things like that, But you don't need to be like super rich or anything like that just to, like you don't need to be like a billionaire or anything like that, but they implant these ideas in your mind. Think, oh well, I guess I've got to, keep making more and more money, but then at what point are you actually gonna, just be happy with what you've got, Do you need to keep doing all this stuff? Now, of course, maybe it's just the thing with people like Tate, where just naturally a hustle guy, but the problem is that when they are promoting it like that's what everybody should be doing, that's where I take problem with it. People trying to like project their own, this is how to do things, this is the way for everybody. That's where I take problem. Everybody's different. So, if hustle culture is a way for you men, okay, but I think for most men out there, I just don't think it is. You're just probably going to burn yourself out. It's going to destroy your soul. That's what they do, is they just destroy your soul. Your essence is just taken from you, your creative potential, your everything, because your whole focus is on making money, whether that's through gambling fucking stocks or whatever it might be, you know, or just crypto, or constantly looking at graphs to analyze them. And it's like, what kind of life is that? I mean, if that's all you're doing all day, you know? Me and my husband are happy with what we have. We don't try to cut cheap shortcuts. We just like simple life. Yeah, well, that's it, you know. But a lot of these people, they just don't really have gratitude for like simplicity and just things like going on walks in nature and things like that. To me, true success is about being able to just appreciate, you know, life, you know, like, and not just constantly have to like strive for perfection, because we'll never get there. People trying to optimize every area of their life, but then they end up missing out on so many things by trying to do that. It just makes them feel empty inside. You know, it's just take the fun out of everything, really. These people get super serious and like they're probably not even a very fun person to be around. And these people that just lock themselves in their room all day and just to try and become a billionaire or whatever it might be, and the thing is, they might never even get there. You know, it's very rare that someone does, and it's just, you know, a lot of these things involve tons of risk, tons of stress to get there, worrying about, you know, your competition doing better than you and things like that, you know. This stuff I just don't see as being worth it, you know. Why would you, you know, like give up so many years of your life and stress yourself out, potentially ruining your health for this stuff, you know? Sometimes I think people need to take a step back and realize that that's not what life is all about, you know? But yeah, so anyway, hope everyone's well today. Yeah, I might just get off soon. I don't know. Not seem to be really pushing me out very much, does it? But who else is still in here then? We were doing all right last night though, but yeah. I don't care about money, I care about happiness. Yeah, that's ultimately what we're trying to get, but of course we can't be happy all the time either, and we have to accept that as well, but we should be trying our best to try and just feel some kind of joy and fulfillment in life. We're always going to have bad days sometimes, but it is what it is. So yeah, so I'll probably be getting off here in a sec. I don't know, unless I restart. But yeah, I'd rather be happy than rich and miserable. Yeah, and you could be stressed out as well and just ruining your health. Basically, it's just not worth it. Yeah, I'll just do like a yogi impression now and be like, people who chase money, they are in their ego. The ego is never satisfied. The ego always wants more. When you can step out of your ego, finally, you can feel fulfilled. So, I learned that from the book, A Course in Miracles. Well, I had to go my own way with that. What's that? You mean go your own way with what? Sorry. There was that ego thing, and like, was it talking about how the ego's like always never satisfied, and yeah, it's just all always wanting more, greedy, and just lustful. I think a lot of these like seven deadly sins and all that is all ego based, isn't it? Thinking about it, what the ego really means, the way I see it. What do you mean? So can you explain more about that? I guess when we're talking ego, we're talking like, um, it's not your real self. It's like, it's your perception of yourself, or the perception that you portray of yourself to others. Like people would put out a certain image of themselves. That's their ego. Their ego is just like a kind of a facade, really. But in a lot of cases, I guess it's the unless it's something that is actually grounded in reality. If the version you are portraying is really you, then you don't have to fake it. Like, it could just be draining to just try and fake who you are. But yeah, a lot of people do it every day, pretending to be something that they're not. So yeah, anyway, any more questions? Exactly, not your real self, and people that try to make something you're not. That the definition of manipulation, which that is ego. Manipulation is ego. Yeah, hi Paolo, hope you're well. Good to see you. Hope you're having a good day. Have you been here before? Welcome in anyway. Hope you're doing well, Paolo. So manipulation is like, well, it's about control. But you could say manipulation comes from the ego. I wouldn't necessarily say that manipulation is ego itself, but it's a manifestation from the ego. Is how I see it. That you the want to control comes from this whole thing of the need to be a certain way, to think of yourself as a certain way, like that you need to be able to project a certain image, and that you would manipulate people into hello Alondra, how you doing? That you would manipulate people into believing in your control and manipulation. That's what I mean, a manifestation. I worded it badly, right? Yeah. Yeah, so basically so yeah, how you doing, Paolo? Hope you're well, from Italy. Reminds me of Paolo Nutini, the singer, anyway, well, the singer-songwriter guy. Did that song New Shoes? Anyway, so like I said, this whole need to control is like, that doesn't come from like our kind of logical mind, I guess. It comes from more of that emotional side of our brain. It's that kind of, there's this whole kind of, like, different centers of the brain. We've got the kind of part of the brain that deals with logic and facts and things like that. Woke up later than usual, but I'm glad I could catch you live. I'm all right, thank you. So yeah, so what I'm saying is like, this whole need to like control things is like that comes from the emotional side of the brain of like kind of it actually comes from like insecurity and not feeling comfortable in your own skin. A lot of it, I think. So yeah, it's like we're worried about how we perceive or are perceived by others, so we would do whatever it takes to try and manipulate and to get that. Yeah, I mean, so many things manifest from ego, like arrogance, which arrogance has so much of the narcissistic traits. Yeah, yeah, definitely. And arrogance, you could say, is like, you could argue that that's the opposite of insecurity, but sometimes the whole arrogance thing is actually a facade, and it's something that they are trying to mask something deep down, a deep-rooted insecurity that they have yet to resolve. They mask it with overcompensating with an arrogant persona, which isn't their true self. So we're talking about the whole thing of the ego and how the ego is not the true self, and it's this fake persona, like I was saying, with someone who is pretending to be like Andrew Tate or whatever, but they themselves might have some deep-rooted issues that they have yet to fully resolve, and that they need to sort all that out. And because someone who is comfortable in their own skin can will be happy with sort of like that, and yeah, they can hurt themselves and others in the process of arrogance. Yeah, yeah, but like I said, I think that a lot of it comes down to like I'm gonna actually look into this. Just gonna see what it says on here. Saying about like, so it says here about, yes, arrogance is often a facade to mask deep-seated insecurity, as arrogant people may use a superior attitude to compensate for feelings of inadequacy or fear of being exposed as not good enough. This behavior is a defense mechanism where they exaggerate their own abilities and put others down to make themselves feel better. So, yeah, I might make a video about this, actually. It'd be a good one to talk about. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, just so talking about like the whole, so there's a few different points about need to feel superior, fear of exposure, so fear of being seen as inadequate, and then there's a lack of self-awareness. So that can be a problem as well, but that's, yeah. And we've got distorted self-perception. I guess that kind of is a similar kind of thing of lack of self-awareness, and the distorted self-perception is kind of a similar thing in terms of like you're not grounded in reality, basically. what's it like holding five fingers in your face, saying you're holding four, and really trying to make you believe that it is four when you are holding five in your face like that. Just using that analogy, well, that's like sort of gaslighting, isn't it? That's what a lot of narcissists and like egotists do. I remember I was looking into the whole thing on egotism and narcissism. There's a lot of overlap. I think oftentimes egotists are also like narcissists, but it's not. I don't think it's 100%, but it's like there's a lot of parallels between the two, and sometimes they are kind of both. So yeah. But yeah, oftentimes people think of like people who are arrogant as like the opposite of insecure, but it's like, for example, there was this guy. I was watching this video. It came up, I think, on my feed. I think it was on a YouTube short, and he got like interviewed, and some woman was saying, no, well, they were saying, do you like bodybuilders or something? And then it's like, and then this woman said, no, I like scrawny, skinny guys. And then he tries to then kind of over like prove himself. Basically, he tries to. I've known people like that. They put on the facade to mask their true problems and their true personality. Yeah, because they're afraid that their true personality isn't adequate to people. So it all comes down to ego, and the ego is actually oftentimes very insecure, and they use arrogance as a way to mask that, and they're afraid of not being seen as adequate to others, which is sad, really. You have to learn to be comfortable in your own skin. So yeah, but then this whole like superiority complex is like a way of like you talk about control. So you could say that it's a manifestation of the ego. This whole need to control, this whole need to become superior over others, to try and be perceived as being superior, as a way to try and convince yourself that that you are worthy, and that you are somebody that is worthy of admiration and whatever, because you have deep issues that because that's something I need to work on as well, because that's how I could be perceived, as being kind of self-righteous and a bit kind of it's really, really sad on the person that did that to me, such a hypocrite. Yeah, but we have to learn to try and kind of learn to understand where someone's coming from, and that the way that their experiences have and led to that point, because we've all been through different experiences in life that has shaped what we become. And we've all had times where we've acted out of character, we've all had times where we did things or said things that we shouldn't have done, and that nobody's perfect. And it's like someone might have had a worse time of it than you, and that could have really messed them up. Of course, there's certain things that are just unforgivable, and not unforgivable, but as in what's the word? Explicable, not explicable, no, like what is it? When you can't just like unexcusable. I mean, like unexcusable. Some things you can't like make excuses for, is what I'm saying. Yeah, you have to drop people out of your life. They're like energy vampires and shit like that, But you probably know all about that stuff. You're into all that kind of more spiritual kind of stuff. So about kind of how everyone emits a certain energy and aura, whatever. It's like this kind of when you're in somebody's presence, you feel a certain energy from them, and whether it's good or bad, or I guess neutral, I guess in some cases, but it's usually good or bad. It's not likely that you're gonna find someone that's completely neutral. Yeah, that's the thing. Like what Yogi says, it's like forgiveness doesn't mean that you let somebody off the hook and just pretend like nothing's happened. Like it's about letting go of that burden, that whether it's a grief or whatever it might be that you're feeling of. You just have to kind of move on and accept that that was a chapter that isn't going to continue, and that's okay. It's all about learning and expanding. The fact that my ex was like that, he was a big tech fan. No, I had big perfection issues, always trying to say it wasn't enough. And the truth was he had other issues that made him feel lower. Yeah, a lot of the guys that get sucked into the whole tech thing that I was on about, they have deep-rooted issues that they need to work on. Most of them are deeply insecure or have been burnt by somebody or something. But even the whole thing of feeling burnt is a form of insecurity in the sense of you're afraid that you're not ever going to be good enough for somebody else, and therefore you have to try and put on some kind of facade or whatever, or you just, I don't know, you just end up, you're afraid of commitment, you're afraid of, getting with someone because something happened to you, instead of self-reflecting and looking back at like, where did things go wrong? How did this even happen? If I wasn't being present or things like that, if they're afraid of, kind of accepting, that who they are, and the accepting their true self in some cases, so that there's different reasons why they could get sucked into that, but I think most of them have some insecurity there, that they're not comfortable in their own skin. They feel like they have to sort of project a certain image to feel worthy to others, because they deep down don't feel worthy to themselves, that they need to project that they have this fake confidence where they need to have a McLaren or something, project that out to the world in order to feel, admired or whatever. That's not true confidence, is it? It's insecurity. A lot of this arrogance is actually not true confidence, is it? It's a facade, like I said before. Well, that's good, it's just like, you have to heal, and yeah. Well, that's it, as long as, you like I said, you need to find someone who, you feel balanced and you feel like there's no control there. There's just, you respect each other, you respect each other's boundaries, and then that's it, If that isn't there, then it's like someone's going to try and walk all over you, One of them's going to walk all over the other if there's a power imbalance, is what I'm saying. It took 4 years for him to figure out he was adopted. I had no clue. I always knew it. He wasn't telling me something, but then he was cheating and being narcissistic. Yeah, this is the thing, right? I was actually talking about this something with Richard about the whole thing about why some women might not like the gym bro guys or something, in terms of, not that they don't like them, but it's the whole thing of, if they're spending a lot of time at the gym, then they're not spending a lot of time with them. And I'm like, but if they're only there for like an hour a day, it's like, is that really like that big of a deal or something? I mean, but it might be more the whole thing of, whilst he's at the gym, what is he doing? Is he cheating on her or something? But again, that comes down to her own insecurities. Then if he's doing that, and then I don't know. But the thing is, if she has problems with that, then it's like, okay, well then I have problems with you just going sneaking off with your friends, going on a fucking friends night out or whatever with your girls. Because what the fuck are you doing there then? You know? Because that's the thing, right? So the thing is, if they've got their boundaries and saying, "Oh, I don't want you to do this," then it's like, okay, well I can flip that around on you then. See how you like it, you know? Because the thing is, if I'm going to the gym, I'm going there for my own, sort of to improve myself, for my own health and my own well-being. So if they had a problem with me doing that, then that's not something that I could, you know, accept. Because like, well, they wouldn't be happy with me just telling them where they can go and when they can go, you know. It was online cheating, all right. But I'm just saying, like, that if they say that I can't go to the gym or something, because I mean, I do a lot of workouts from home and things like that, though, but then I could be like, well, if it's really that big of a problem, then why don't you come along then? I don't know. So that's the thing, right? If they're saying like, oh well, you shouldn't go to the gym because I don't know what you're doing there, because they were saying that they could use it as a way to cheat. I can use it as an excuse to go and cheat. But it's like, well, if they're really that bothered, then they could just come along or something. There's nothing to stop them. They could, join you on your session or something, even if they just sit around with you most of the time and just kind of maybe they could just go on a treadmill or something. I don't know, but it's like some people just want to control you. I think, isn't it? Control what you do when you do it. It's like especially these like BPD kind of people. They're like, oh, who's this you're talking to? Even if it's like just, it could be, say, like, for example, someone from work that you just have to kind of like have a meeting with or something like that, for example, and they're worried that you're cheating on them because deep down they're insecure and that they don't have that self-worth to think that, that you're going to be faithful to them. But then at the same time, you've also got some people who are that arrogant that they think that like they can just um that they can just like do anything and get away with it. They think that they can cheat and that the person will still want to be with them until reality hits. In some cases, the person's a real friggin' simp or whatever, but it's like they think they can do whatever they want. They think they can cheat. They think that they can disrespect. They can, step over boundaries and etc. etc. And that's okay, But it's not okay, and you're just a total selfish piece of shit. Yeah, yeah. Well, that's it. I think. I mean, as long as I think you should be invited, like everywhere that the person goes. I think, for example, if they want to go out meet friends, then they should at least invite you to come along. They shouldn't be like trying to do things like exclusive or whatever, and trying to just, you know. But it comes down to like, yeah, there needs to be trust there. But the moment you tell me I can't go, I know there's an issue. Yeah, But I wouldn't really agree with, say, like, when some people would have someone, say, like, going away on holiday for weeks without you. I think that's a bit kind of, I don't know. I don't know if that's really, like, right. If they're going on a girls' trip and it's lasts for 2, 3 weeks, it's like, what on earth are they getting up to in that time without you there? I don't know. Like, it would feel a bit abandoned, you know? So I think it comes down to, like, I guess finding some kind of middle ground and just sort of, no, some might say, well, at least if they're gonna do that, they should at least be, like, sending a lot of, like, messages to kind of just to check in and things like that, but I still wouldn't, I don't know, necessarily like the idea of them just, like, abandoning me for, like, weeks at a time, because it would feel a bit like you're just being, oh, it seems if what it feels like they'd rather hang around with these people than me, than their partner. I'd feel like, well, what's the point then? I don't know. It's almost like they're saying, "Oh, I'm sick of you. I'm gonna go off with my friends, and I don't wanna see you for a while." That's kind of what it's saying. Of course, some depending on their job, they might have certain things, obligations and stuff like that. Okay, that's fair enough, but I don't know. I remember I was, like, having an argument about this a while ago, but I guess it comes down to, like, how, into it you are, really. Like, if you are really serious with someone, then if you're going on a holiday, you think you'll go away with the person that you're with, but I don't know. I mean, you don't have to go everywhere, but if they're going on a holiday for weeks at a time, is not a bit much? Okay, maybe if they're going away for, like, a weekend or something, but everywhere. What you saying you would go everywhere with them, or what you mean? Said, "No, I'd personally hate it if I'm with someone, I'd take them everywhere with me." Hang on, I'm trying to, I find it confusing what you're saying there, like, because it's just the way I see it is that when you're with someone, that they should be, like, your priority then, and that, yeah, of course, you can still see friends and stuff, but it's like, I don't know, everyone's different, but it's like, yeah, that's it, that's the thing, it's like, the way I see it is, like, when I'm with someone, they're then my priority, then there's gonna be times where you can't be with that person, like, for example, you work in different jobs and things like that. These are things that just, like, that I think that's good, and it does give you some space. I don't think that they should necessarily work the same jobs, because then that could get to a point where they might actually be seeing each other too much. I think there needs to be a balance. So, like, working different jobs are giving each other some space, and yeah, but it's like, but to, like, leave someone behind for, like, weeks at a time. So I remember there was some story about some, like, where some woman would, like, go on some girls' trip for, like, 3 weeks, and that's, like, 3 fucking weeks. That's, like, nearly a month, of, like, away from the person that they're with. I'm guessing that they're not really that kind of into him if they're doing that. They're probably going and cheating during that time, I'm guessing. Because why else would they be doing all that? It's almost like a way for them to cheat and get away with it, because there's not going to be any, like, evidence of it, is there? Because it's not like, for example, if they're, if you're with them and you're, like, say, um, you're living with them, and especially, and let's say, they got to work, and then they come home. It's like there's not really that oftentimes that going to be that much opportunities for them to cheat, but it's like when they're on a holiday in another country somewhere that you're not there with them, and it's like even if they're in the same country and they're just away for a week or whatever, and they're um yeah, they have to be independent but still want each other. Yeah, that's the balance that's needed for that stuff. But like, yeah. So what I'm saying, I guess, is just like, yeah, if you they both need to value the relationship the same, otherwise it's just not going to work. Like if you're being took for granted and they're just going to go away somewhere and just secretly be like hang around with other men, it's like okay, that they could send you messages while they're away, but that doesn't still prove that they're not doing anything behind your back. And why are they even wanting to do that anyway? You know, I don't know. It's just it is what it is, really. But of course, sometimes you need your own kind of friends, and it's like a support network. I think it's good to have a support network, really, just because of like just in case things go wrong. You might not always be able to rely on your family, but I'd say your family should be the first like port of call. But I think it's good to have people that you can sort of feel like you can just say whatever. If say you're having some issues, right? You're having some issues with somebody, and then you can just kind of talk to somebody else about it because you're having real like concerns. If say someone starts to show signs of being abusive and things like that, then you need to have friends because then you might be able to then move in with that person temporarily if say like things start getting really bad. So it's good to have that support network there to have that someone that you can stuff like say, oh yeah, I'm having some real issues right now, and obviously your family should be like number one. It's like I was watching this, like it was like a true crime thing. It was like somebody that had like come over from Canada and like to go and meet their boyfriend IRL and go and live with him for a while, and he started to become quite abusive, and it got to a point where he ended up like unaliving her, and but she started to like raise some red flags to her family, but it was too late by then. Pretty much, things started to get really out of hand, and yeah, we started to get a temper and all this stuff. But it's like, but you have to like be very much like open with the people that are closest to you, whether that's like your family or close friends that you're close with. That way, there's that support there, and that they can just kind of you can maybe like get out of your situation, move in with them potentially, and so you're not like trapped in that because there's this whole thing of like Stockholm syndrome and that kind of thing where they become trapped with the person that is abusing them because maybe they're afraid of what will happen if they leave or something. I don't know because they don't have anywhere else to go, or they've been. I mean, I don't think that got to that point with this guy, but it was like, but some in abusive relationships they get into a point of where they are told that they should stop, talking to their friends and stuff like that. And no, and that's just kind of like, that's a huge red flag if they try and cut you off from your friends because those are your support network in case, say, things go wrong. Like if you end up, having to leave because it's like, so they want to make sure that you have no support there. Suddenly someone starts to just get really like controlling and abusive, and sometimes even physical stuff happens, because you never really know, do you? Sometimes people will sort of play the long game and they'll just, yeah. So we have to just be have those people around you, whether it's you're close to your family members or you're close to some friends or whatever. But yeah. So yeah, you can prioritize your relationship, but it is important to have that support there as protection, basically. Some people are going to end up like screwed, aren't they? If what if they try and just leave the person, then they might have nowhere to go. Because unless they can like, I mean, sometimes they can just get out of that situation, but it can be an issue where like it can take some time for them to find a new place to live or something like that. And if they've got like friends that they can talk to, and they can say, you need to get out of there, you need to, this ain't right. Because the thing is that when you're, if you're in love with someone, then you can like, sometimes you can sort of not really see how bad things are. You're kind of blinded by it. And by having somebody there that you can talk to about everything, then they can sort of be like a voice of reason and be like, you get a second opinion on it. That's what it's good for, is having a second opinion. That when things are going wrong, it's good to have that person there that can, an outsider that can see it for what it is. So that is what I would recommend, that when you've got someone like that, then you feel like you feel more safe and secure. But it kind of like ties in with like, say, like a job. For example, you need to be able to have like the confidence that you can just, yeah. Well, that's good then, yeah. Um so like, what, say if you have a job and then like they start to abuse you, like if say like the boss starts to try and treat you like shit and gets nasty and whatever, then you have every right to leave. But unfortunately, in some cases, people feel trapped. They feel, because there's no proof, that they might not be able to prove that they're being, sort of taken advantage of or whatever, and your word against theirs kind of thing, and you feel trapped. But you have to look into like your options and find other things to kind of. I think it's good to have different skills to work on. It's probably good to have some side hustle that you have. That way, you've got something to fall back on. So I think that's a reason to do a side hustle, not just to make more money, but also the fact that you'd have something to fall back on in case shit hits the fan. So this is the thing of like having some kind of like fail safe or something like that, if you will, having something to like kind of fall back on to not get yourself in trouble. Because that's just, yeah, you know. Yeah, we just have to kind of, we have to learn to basically harness our value to leverage it, and because otherwise it's just potential that we only have a potential value unless we choose to harness that and we choose to cultivate our own values. We just end up becoming subservient to somebody. That's not what we want. And we have to not become under somebody else's control, because that is not healthy, is it? So it's in general, whether it's in a friend, a relationship, like a controlling boss or something like that. Anything. I don't know if there's any other examples, but yeah, it's just sometimes it feels like everyone's out to get you, everyone's out to manipulate you, to gaslight you, to control you, to subvert you, or whatever. They're trying to do something to bring you down or to control you and bend to their will. What the hell? Put me under your spell, please, and thank you. What's that? Anyway, okay. I don't know, just but it's got this whole thing of the need to control. But I was talking the other day about control, but I was talking about self-control, about the whole thing of controlling your own destiny. So that whole need for control should be about yourself, about learning to be in control of your own destiny. That's what I'm trying to say. Some people want to, be led, but if you want to become your own leader, you want to take control of your life, then it means, well, first of all, you need to figure out what your purpose is in life. What do you really want from life? And then you can figure out how it is that you can actually, make a living out of that. And that's how you free yourself. Basically, people are looking at it like kind of backwards. They're like looking at, oh, what can I do to make money? Instead of thinking, how do I make money from what I do? Sort of thing. It's like they're looking at it from the wrong perspective of like, and it's a scarcity mindset where they think there's not really a lot of options out there, and we have to try and expand our minds and see what's out there. And sometimes for some people it might mean living a more modest lifestyle, in some cases, like van life, for example, for certain people, if that's what people want to do, if what they enjoy doing, that's the way that they need to kind of facilitate that life. So it comes down to like, what is it that you really want out of life? Well, I was watching this video on this channel, and it was where they, I think, watched a couple of them, and they live in like alternative lifestyles. And one of them bought a house in Bulgaria, and it was only like a few grand. And it's like they have this patch of land, and I think they started growing some food or something, or I don't know, I think they have some chickens on it, something. It's like there is options out there. I'm not saying everyone should do that, but it's like, everyone's gonna like sort of have their own way that's like their own version of success. put my career life first, then I'm working on getting a home with a good amount of land. Yeah. But the problem is that when a lot of people put in their career first, they end up like miserable because their focus is on climbing the career ladder for the sake of making more money instead of it being about furthering their purpose and, you know, increasing their, you know, sort of purpose in life to something of value. It's all about how much money this is going to get me. There's no real aim of it other than just about money. But I guess you're just kind of, I don't know. There's this whole thing of finding purpose along the way, but then that could just lead you to feeling lost and just kind of, when your whole kind of direction is based on money and having material possessions, instead doing things the other way around and it being about starting first with your purpose and then making money as a result of that and being happy with whatever you need to like live, basically. Because you might realize that you don't need to do a lot of the things that people do to get them rich and things. So it's just, but if you want land, then obviously that's going to cost a lot of money. But there are ways of like, I think there are things like off-grid communities and things like that where you could just kind of get into that, and in some cases they might, you know, have a home for you to go live in, and just you might pay a certain fee, whatever, but then you get to just, you know, live off the land and stuff. Yeah, I suppose like it just depends on, but I guess it depends. The thing with land, at least where here I am, it's like it's not that simple to just be able to live on the land. I don't think. 'Cause I think there was this thing where having to have like planning permission just to put a fucking, you know, a home on it, even like a mobile home, like it could take a while to even get permission to do that, which I think is wrong, really. You know, like if you bought that land and you own that land, then it's like you should have like full control over that land, as long as you're not doing anything that's harming it. You don't really own that land, then, do you? Then it's the government that owns the land. If they're telling you that, oh well, you need the planning permission to put a home on it, do you actually own that land then? You know, I'd say no. If they have control over what you can do and can't do with that land, then do you really own that land? Of course, as long as you're not breaking any laws like murdering people, basically as long as you're not doing anything illegal, unlawful, whatever. It's like, how is putting a friggin' home to be able to just have some shelter on your own land breaking any laws? Why do you need permission to do that? Because then that means that the government then owns that land. If you can't do what you want with that land, as long as you're not harming anybody else, you should be able to do it. Yeah. But I have no one to build that right now, but I want to be financially able in Florida, certain zones where you can put a home right. Yeah, it can be expensive to do that. Some people have like learned how to build their own home, but that's going to be very difficult to learn. A lot of skills involved, like a lot of like carpentry skills and things like that. But yeah. But some of these like prefabricated homes are quite cheap. They're quite small, but depends on what you need it for, really. A lot of these homes have become quite like open planned and just sort of you could probably like fit a good amount in that space, just because it's like if you try and maximize the space, and like you might just like put a bed in like the like you might put like a ladder and just have a bed like on top of the on top of it, nearly, like, kind of thing. So that way you open a bit more space up. Things like that, really. A lot of people don't really maximize the space in their own home. They haven't really laid everything out in a way that maximizes it. Like, everything's all kind of laid out in a way that doesn't open up the space very well. And a lot of people have a lot of clutter that's not necessarily in their homes as well. So the thing is that we probably don't really need that much space in our homes. If we weren't to just hoard stuff, and we also like I said, if we're like positioning everything in an efficient way, and maybe we'd have our beds just like on the friggin', like, if you think about, like, let's say I put a bed up on, let's say up on, this is where the bed was sat, and I could have like just a ladder go up to it, and I could just, then that means that all that space below it is freed up. Whereas, you know, if you've got like a bed in that space, then it's like then that's gonna take up all that space there then, and like, so there are ways of it all being possible. And yeah, mobile home, but it's just, if I remember, you're not even allowed to, like, at least in this country, allowed to even do that without permission, which is just completely wrong, I think. You should at least be able to have a mobile home on your own fucking land. I mean, come on. Like, I don't know. I'd argue that by doing that, it's actually probably better for the environment, because you're actually, because you don't need to be like pumping out as much bad stuff into the environment. And it also like requires less, you know, building onto greenbelt land. So keep going on about building onto greenbelt land, but it's like if they let people actually live in a mobile home or something like that, then they wouldn't keep needing to like build on greenbelt land. And the problem is there's all this like housing shortage and stuff where there's not enough new houses being built. Well, why not just let people live in these sort of things, you know? Because they say, oh, we've not got enough labourers and things like that, I think is what they'll probably say, to build enough homes to house people. Okay, we'll let people live in a mobile home on their own land or something. And it's like, I don't know. $250,000 for over 2 acres. Yeah, you could get a whole bunch of people on that, couldn't you? And between each person, it would be like nothing. So it could be an option to like try and have some, like, you know, if you can find some bit of land, get a few people together, and we all just live on there or something. It's like, yeah, I think you could like put like a friggin', I'd have to see if you could technically like, whether you're allowed to like put a tent on it or something even. Are you even allowed to do that without permission if it's your own land? I'll have to just check. Let me have a look, because I mean, not everyone's necessarily going to want to live like that, really. So, you know, 'cause it's not really like proper shelter, but allowed to live in a tent. Let's have a look. See what it says. It says no. In most of the UK, living in a tent on your own land without permission is not allowed, even if you own the land, because it can be considered a form of unauthorized development that requires planning permission, while Scotland has more relaxed rules for temporary wild camping, permanent or long-term living in a tent is subject to planning permission rules, blah, blah, blah. Probably because they can't tax it, can they? They can't get council tax off you, right? Yeah, that's probably what it is, right? Like, yeah, it's but you could argue that it's like if I own the land, then I should be able to do what I want with it. Then I don't really own it, then, do I? You could argue that it should be able to become like the Wild West if you own it. If you technically own that land, you should be able to have your own fucking micro government or something if it was big enough. I know someone was talking about, the idea of creating a new country or something like that. If you buy enough land and you just create your own micro state, and so you can create your own rules, your own laws. In Florida, I think you can in about no planning permission or something. But yeah, so I was talking earlier about the ridiculousness of this whole system and how people are working to pay for the car that they drive to work, and they're what else? They're working to pay for rent for a house that stays vacant the whole time. It's just insane, isn't it? Just have to make sure the land is clear, right? Mean clear from what? Well, I'm gonna get going, guys, I think. So thank you all for stopping by. I'll see you all soon. All right, peace out, everybody. Bye.